Listen to this podcast now
on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Idea Gen Global Podcast with George Sifakis.
I'm George Sifakis. In a world overflowing with noise, there is one forum where the world's smartest voices connect, where visionaries sit at the same table as innovators, and great minds don't just talk, they act.
Download all of Red Apple Media's podcasts right now through your favorite podcast platform.
The Dick Morris Show.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Hello, Dick Morris. How you doing?
Sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group. I'm doing good. We have a very special guest coming on.
Somebody I like to call a friend. I hope he thinks I'm his friend, too.
General Michael Flynn, who...
how are you, gentlemen? How are you guys doing? And thank you for having me on this blustery day there where you're at. I'm lucky I was able to get out, and I have a meeting down in Florida, so I'm actually in a pretty good spot right now.
Wait, where are you now? In D.C.?
No, I'm actually down in the East Coast. I'm down in the Mar-a-Lago, Palm Beach area.
Oh, let's go to lunch afterwards.
I know, huh?
We're in West Palm.
I'm actually downtown in the. We're having a small summit down here today to talk about.
I'm grateful that you're coming on.
Thank you so much.
I want to begin with talking about ICE. It appears that the Democrats have found the issue that they're looking for in attacking ICE and what they would call the overreaction and the overzealousness in going after people. But you've been saying that there's more here than meets the eye, that the hidden hand of the left is behind these riots and doing it deliberately. Tell us about that, General, please.
Yeah, and I appreciate it. I mean, I write quite a bit, and one of the things and I typically write about, geopolitics and national security and just, strategic issues. And as I began to really examine some of the things that are happening on the streets of America, not just because of this most recent thing going on with ICE up in Minneapolis, but over time, there is a hidden hand. It's sort of a if you want to call it a deep state within a deep state, right? You have your deep state bureaucracy and both at federal level in Washington, D.C., but also in many parts of the country, especially in some of these blue states. We call them blue states, right? Because it's like a state like Minnesota led by a Democrat governor in Walz. Mm-hmm. But you also have other elements that are out that are, international elements and local, state, maybe even, national level, for-profit, not-for-profits that work together in collusion, to support these, types of efforts, and it's everything from, everybody sees this. American people see this. Your audience, is a very smart audience, and they see this kind of thing. But the question is, sort of who are these people and why aren't we able to challenge them? Why aren't we able to do anything about it? And I do think that listening to Scott Bassett, listening to Marco Rubio, listening to Stephen Miller, policy advisor to Donald Trump, and of course President Trump himself, they appear to be trying to take some actions against this money, because it's money at the end of the day. You can't have activists show up with all of the accoutrements that they have. I mean, I was told, like, for example, Friday and Saturday, knowing that the weather was coming in, that some group, and I don't have the answer, exactly who, but I will discover who it is. But they actually shipped in, trucks filled with jackets, gloves, hats, scarves, warm weather gear, and they were issuing it out. Saturday, so this is Sunday. So they started to issue this out because the weather conditions up in Minnesota right now, Minneapolis, are probably zero. Never mind the blustery weather.
Bring your own outrage.
Yeah. So there is a hidden hand, and that's what I wrote about recently. And I appreciate you bringing that to light, Dick, because I think that
General, let's just play it out. Sorry to interrupt you, but let's just play it out. Do you think that there is a serious effort here to incite violence, to get ICE to overreact, and so that the left can live off the shootings and the outrages that appear to be committed, that are provoked by these groups?
100%. I would bet a dime to a dollar with anyone that is in fact the case. Now, these are, when Trump is out and about, the world, and he's doing the things that he's doing, his great speech to Davos the other day, all this issue, because I know I don't know if we'll have time today, we're talking about everything from Venezuela to Greenland to, what's happening in the Middle East, Europe, here in the homeland, the kinds of things that Trump is doing to get the economy going. All of that are things that the left does not want to be talking about. What they want to be talking about is, that the zealousness or the overreaction of federal law enforcement professionals, based on, the Nazi in the White House. I mean, this is what the left's message wants, and they want to they will do anything to distract from any positive outcomes that President Trump is achieving, because they want to. We're in a very critical year, and nobody knows this better than you, Dick. The criticality of midterm elections. So this is a really, really important year. So anything that they can do, and there will be forces, dark forces, evil forces, that will pay whatever price to keep the distraction exactly where it's at. So President Trump has to be very cautious about the decisions that he makes, because the consequences could be, it could be dire as we head into next November.
So, General, when I forgot the guy's name, the guy who was just killed. Pretty. His name was Pretty. Mm-hmm. Yeah. When Pretty advanced on an armored vehicle and held at least his cell phone in his hand, some say gun, and attacked the vehicle, do you believe that he was, in effect, a suicide bomber?
Like he needed to be a martyr type of thing?
Do you think that? Do you think
that
he was giving his life?
So here's where I'm at. Here's where I'm at with this. I appreciate that. I'm not. I wasn't there. There has to be an investigation. There's so many different angles that this thing was seen by. But the bigger question is: are there people being in harm's way for harmful purposes?
Yeah.
And I have to believe, and we know this to be true anyways, because of the activists that we've seen from Los Angeles to Portland to Seattle to Minneapolis to Detroit to, many, Washington, D.C. for that matter, New York City. When we talk about the various protests for, Palestine, nobody's talking about Palestine anymore because Trump solved that, right? So what they have to do is they have to turn the attention, but they have to get these activists, and the thing that they're going to learn is, was this guy a paid activist? Was he part of an organization? And we typically find out during an investigation, which will ensue, and there'll be professionals to do it, and they'll find out very quickly, why was this guy out there in freezing cold temperatures to stop law enforcement from doing their lawful, the lawful execution of their duties, which is to remove illegals from this country who are raping, pillaging, murdering American citizens. This is not theoretical.
A further question. Why did he have 2 clips of ammunition on his body? Why did he approach them with a gun? Why did he attempt to conceal the gun? And do you think that this is what the left used to call the agent provocateur?
I mean, I'd be speculating, but I probably wouldn't be far off. Here's the funny sort of paradox of all this, Dick and Doug. I mean, so now the left is going to have to be champions for Second Amendment rights.
Right.
So that's the reverse of this is that and this is really, to me, and I'm already starting this because I also I want to see the White House be very strong in their condemnation of anybody who is standing against the bounded law enforcement professionals that we have to do their job.
Right.
That has to end. But now the left is going to have to be champions for the Second Amendment. That's I mean, it's serious, but it's funny at the same time.
I'm amazed, General, that the left is prepared to head on be anti-ICE. The Senate even talking about cutting off the appropriations for ICE unless there are amendments passed crippling it. That you literally have a pro-crime, pro-illegal immigration, pro-keep letting murderers and rapists stay in the country constituency.
I think it is a divide and conquer with the funding people, whether it's Soros, whomever they are. And Bissett said they're going to follow the money. They're going to see where these jackets came from and where all these signs come from. Yeah. But I think it's divide and conquer and make these more useful idiots more useful. And when one gets shot, they probably like the idea that funding people. They see that it's going to be big.
Let's take it a slightly different tack, because you're hitting on something that's very important. And I have always said that, all war is deception, right? Because there's a lot of deception in warfare. So distractions, right? What was going on up in Somalia that they don't want us talking about? Well, Trump just posted, I think today or last night, we're now looking at $100 billion in U.S. taxpayer money that has been basically taken out of the state of Minnesota and through the city of Minneapolis, through the TSA. They found, $700 million in suitcases, $100 billion U.S. taxpayer dollars that are absconded from the state of Minnesota. But, what they want to talk about is they want to talk about how bad ICE is, right? So they are always going to seek ways to distract, and they're going to cause mayhem, chaos on the streets. Even if it's 30 below, they'll be there, because they cannot have the story of $100 billion in grift being stolen from U.S. taxpayers through the state of Minnesota, and Governor Walz, allegedly. I mean, I think what they'll find is that Governor Walz and his team, elements within his government, elements within the state, and certainly elements in Minneapolis were well aware of it. You cannot have that kind of money flowing out of one state. We know it's out of multiple states, but at least $100 billion right now that we assess coming out of Minneapolis and Minnesota. So that's what we need to be talking about. Who, what, when, where, why, and how.
And the idea that there's a system going on where they let in a group of immigrants, Somalians, who may have once had just cause to come, who are a minority, who work together, who are conspiratorial, and who are determined to rip off the state for as much as they can. And then when we close in on them, they riot against ICE and vilify a police officer and then force a death, force an outrage so that they can profit off that like they did off George Floyd.
100%.
It elevates partisanship to a new and disgusting level. General,
one of the
things... go ahead, sir.
Well, what I was going to say briefly is that I want people that are listening to your show that are from all over this country to know that these ICE agents, these federal law enforcement officers, they're not being shipped in. I mean, maybe now because of the size of these protests, but most of these agents that are on the streets there protecting their citizens, getting rid of these illegals, are from those communities. Their wives work in their communities, principally. Their children go to the schools in those communities. These are people that are in their communities helping them. And that's why these activists generally that are in charge of these protests, they're coming from outside. They're not from the communities.
So now we have to worry about these creeps doxing them, doxing them.
Now, I'd like to break for a minute from the discussion of the Iceman cometh to go to
Greenland.
Talk about Greenland. Tell us why Greenland is important to the United States strategically, militarily.
Quickly, and this goes back to World War II, the Battle of the Atlantic. Greenland became very important. We had communications, we had airfields, we had intelligence, and other devices up in Greenland as we were fighting the Battle of the Atlantic, trying to defeat the Nazis during World War II. So there's a long history going at least back, 80, 90 years. And this actually goes back to even before the U.S. entered World War II. So since that time, we actually have a treaty. I think the treaty, don't hold me to the exact year, but I think it's around 1950. The U.S. has a treaty with Greenland already. So we've been very good stewards. We've continued to work with the Danes and NATO and the positioning of Greenland. But when you look at Greenland geographically, and then sort of geostrategically, it is the entrance to the Arctic, which has an abundance of resources that the Russians want. Greenland itself is a natural resource, but also Greenland is a barrier, if you will, for sort of the new forms of warfare that we are in. It's not just a place where, as Trump has indicated, another location for his idea about the Golden Dome to protect us from, nuclear attacks and such. But it is a strategic positioning for really critical straits, geographic straits in the Atlantic and in the Arctic Oceans that we have to be able to use to protect our own national security.
Explain the idea of
what Trump is doing.
Explain the impact of climate change on the Northwest Passage and how that's changing geography. The worst thing about climate change for the Russians is if they have to pass through the straits up there with their nuclear submarines, which they do routinely. So climate change is when somebody launches a nuclear attack from undersea, and we sit here and go, oh my God, we should have listened to Trump and leverage that part of the world to be able to protect our own interests. But I mean the Northwest Passage becoming increasingly ice-free.
I don't know.
With not ice in Minneapolis, but there's no ice up there.
I don't know about this climate change thing.
I can't take it. I can't take it. But I mean, your audience. So I'll leave you with this. I'm from up in New England. I'm near Plymouth Rock. Plymouth Rock was identified in 1600. Okay, 1600. The ocean hasn't crept up on Plymouth Rock, not an inch since 1600. Right. So, if anybody that ever goes up there, you can go up there in the summertime to visit Plymouth Rock. It's a very great piece of history for the United States founding. Go look at Plymouth Rock. Plymouth Rock hasn't submerged underneath the water yet, folks. So
and Florida, we should be underwater.
Yeah, but I mean, increasingly the idea of the Northwest Passage as an alternative to the Panama Canal, which is basically running out of water because of evaporation.
Yeah. Right.
With those climate change,
you're exactly right. You're exactly right, Dick. And the distances between the Pacific and the Atlantic, between the Pacific and the Mediterranean, between the Pacific and the Baltic Sea, which is the northern part of Europe, and the Pacific, like the trade routes, or using the Panama Canal, the differences in distance are not that much. Right. One of the things that Trump realizes that he has to invest in, and this is very tactical in nature, but we have to invest in icebreakers because the Russians actually invested in, they have about 60 icebreakers. This is a very tactical detail.
Interesting.
People need to understand this. Yeah, the Russians have about 60 icebreakers. About 20% of them are nuclear powered. The United States of America has 4. None of them are nuclear powered, and they're all 1950s vintage. So Trump he fully understands this issue. It is a big deal because in order to break through, the passage routes, the trade routes that run the northern part of the world, we need those kinds of capabilities. And actually, we can manufacture those types of ships right here in the United States of America in places like Pennsylvania, places like Maryland and Mississippi, so there's a lot of benefit there.
I think that the thing that the administration is not explaining to people, and I hope you do, is that the geographic changes brought on by climate change and the de-icing of the Arctic have changed and also the Golden Dome defense approach, and also the Chinese and Russian naval fleets have changed the strategic calculus to a point where Greenland becomes essential, not just optional.
Well, listen, we have a hard break coming, General. If you want to stay on, you let us know, but I know you have to go.
No, we
just quickly say, because Dick, you used a key word, I would make it stronger. It is vital. Greenland is a vital national security interest, which means that President Donald J. Trump has a duty and a responsibility in order to preserve the Constitution of the United States of America, that he has got to put this on the table, and he's doing exactly what I think he needs to do. So God bless you guys. Thank you to your great audience.
Well, thank you so much, General.
Thank you for breaking the ice.
It's an honor to have you on, General.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Back to the Dick Morris and Doug DiPierro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group.
Wasn't that great interview with General Flynn, Dick?
That was terrific.
He's amazing. Great. He had so much to talk about, but he had to run. He told me earlier.
I want to talk about a speech that might be one of the most consequential in modern history, given by the president of Argentina, Javier Milei, as he addressed the Davos Economic Forum. And it was a declaration of war on the way politics has been practiced for a long time. Power without virtue, outcomes without accountability, efficiency without morality. Milei didn't just challenge policies, he challenged the worldview behind them. He said the rebirth of the ideas of liberty, the Americas, will be the beacon of light to illuminate the West. He's absolutely right. For years, the West, we're basically paraphrasing Milei throughout this segment. For years, the West has been caged into making a false choice. We're told that if we want things to work, we have to loosen our grip on truth. If we want stability, we must sacrifice principle. Justice is nice for sermons and slogans, but real governing requires compromise at its core. Milei called that lie exactly what it is. Put bluntly, Milei was saying, when public policies are designed, it is unacceptable from the standpoint of ethics and morality to sacrifice justice on the altar of efficiency. The commitment to values not only stands above economic efficiency, but even stands far above political utilitarianism. This was not an academic lecture from a detached philosopher. This was a man speaking as the leader of a nation that's tried every flavor of socialism sold to the modern world. The compassionate version, the technocratic version, the populist version, and the end was always the same. Inflation that crushed families, dependency that hollowed out dignity, and a state that promised everything and delivered nothing. So when Milei pointed to Venezuela, he wasn't exaggerating. An 80% collapse in GDP is not a talking point. A narco-dictatorship exporting instability is not theoretical. Socialism just doesn't fail on paper. It destroys society in real time. What makes Milei's address different from the usual pro-market speech is that he refused to defend capitalism merely because it produces more stuff. That argument is settled. Even the left has quietly conceded that markets outperform central planning. Their new attack is moral. Capitalism works, they say, but it isn't fair. Milei didn't shy away from that nonsense. He rooted free enterprise in something deeper than productivity. Natural law, life, liberty, property, not as abstract ideals, but as moral realities tied to human nature itself. A man is born free. He has the right to his life. He has the right to pursue meaning and provision. And yes, he has the right to the fruits of his labor. Taking that right away does not create justice. It creates state-approved theft. This is where the modern state loses its footing. Once the government claims the authority to redistribute effort by force, it does not elevate society, it corrodes it. Creativity dries up. responsibility disappears. Coordination breaks down. Poverty spreads, not because people are evil, but because incentives matter. Millay dismantled one of the most destructive academic fantasies of the last century, the idea that production and distribution can be separated, that you can centrally decide outcomes without centrally crushing initiative. History has already rendered its verdict. That illusion has already cost the world tens of millions of lives and untold suffering. Yet even in the wake of such abject failures, that fantasy world somehow claims to be a higher standard of morality. However, the law that violates natural law may be legal, but it's not legitimate. When governments abandon the non-aggression principle, when they normalize coercion as compassion, they're no longer protecting society, they're consuming it. This was written by a guy who attended the speech. He said, and then I listened to him say something that only shifted the tone, but restored a bit of optimism that maybe the world hasn't gone as far off the deep end as I feared. The best proof of what is happening in the Americans was the rebirth of the idea of liberty. Therefore, Americans will again be the beacon of light.
No, therefore the Americans.
The Americas will again be the beacon of light that will again illuminate the entire West, thereby repaying the civilizational debt with expressions of gratitude toward the foundations in Greek philosophy, Roman law, and Judeo-Christian values. We have a better future ahead, but that better future exists only if we return to the roots of the West, which means returning to the ideas of liberty. May God bless the West, and may the forces of freedom be with us. Long live freedom, damn it. Across the Americas, we the people are tired of managed decline. We're tired of moral confusion dressed up as sophistication. Tired of being told that surrender is compassion and dependence is dignity. The rebirth of the ideas of liberty is not academic, it is spiritual, it is moral, and it's happening whether the gatekeepers approve or not. The pragmatism of Machiavelli is dead. It's our duty to keep him buried.
That is a great line right there.
So what Millay is doing really is saying that it isn't that socialism doesn't work. It isn't just that socialism is unfair. It's that the fundamental injustice of socialism, the fundamental injustice of taking a person's labor and the fruits of his labor away from him by government coercion, creates an environment in which virtue is impossible and in which good can't happen. And this guy is president of Argentina. He's seen socialism in all of its many vague costumes, pragmatism, emergency efforts, and he's coming back and he's saying that it's foolish, it's a paradise that will never happen.
Well, Dick, it stifles initiative. Who wants to go out and work really hard and invent something they think, and then someone's going to take it away, or they're not going to make any money when they need to themselves to do well. It just takes the initiative away from everyone, socialism.
We're tired of moral confusion dressed up as sophistication. Tired of being told that surrender is compassion and that dependence is dignity. Can't be said better than that.
That's great speech.
And God bless him for saying that.
Great speech.
When we come back, the left-wing media has a new tactic, not just ice in the streets, but they are trying to block out good economic news. Reagan once said, you're entitled to your own opinion, but not to your own facts.
I usually say you're entitled to your ridiculous opinion. But listen, we got 6 minutes. You could do this.
Oh, we do? Okay.
Yeah.
But not to your own facts.
You're entitled to your ridiculous opinion.
Lately, the facts about the economy are moving in one direction, and voter opinions are moving in the other direction. When asked in McLaughlin's polling if the economy is getting better or worse, 56% say worse. Worse. But when you read them the basic facts, 62% say it's getting better. When voters are presented with factual information that the economy is growing, inflation is declining, Wages for every year and every month are rising faster than prices. Consumer spending is up. Unemployment is low. Interest rates are being cut. Business investment is rising and federal taxes are being cut. Public opinion shifts dramatically. Trump's problem is that the liberal media won't let the president get out his message. During the president's address from the Oval Office in December, several liberal anti-Trump networks chose to censor or obscure the White House's visual graphs. Graphs which clearly documented improvements in wage growth versus inflation, gas prices, manufacturing, and tax refunds. This was not a subtle editorial decision. This was a deliberate action of an information suppression. It's illustrative of precisely why moving opinion remains difficult, even when the facts are on the president's side. Indeed, the polling shows that each side in the political debate has its own set of facts and its own media outlets to publicize them. If you watch CNN, MSNBC, or other left media, you never hear the true economic situation. It's only in Fox and Newsmax and stations like this that you get the real facts.
You know, I always make little notes, Dick, and I have great information suppression. That's exactly what it is. That's what you said, information suppression. And well, listen, the best thing that Trump ever did was his Truth Social, you know, and then Musk with X. That's the one thing that's keeping us above water right now.
Exactly. Getting the truth out, getting these information out.
But, you know, it's going to be impossible for the media. I mean, they can talk bad about him and say horrible stuff, and the morons are just going to believe it. But most people are going to see gas is coming down and things are happening. So it's going to be pretty hard for the media to talk about how bad the economy is when people have a little more money in their pocket. So
Trump said the border is now secure. First time Biden said you couldn't do it, you need legislation. I had no legislation. Close the border, I said. Within 1 month, we had almost nobody coming in. Now, for the last 8 months, nobody came into our country illegally. We have a lot of heart for the people. They came in illegally, but they're good people, and they're now working on farms, and they're working in luncheonettes and hotels and all. We're looking to get the criminals out right now. I think it's very important. This is Trump. I mean, every once in a while you see a story. Take someone who should be out because they came in illegally. So in theory, they should be. But we're focused on the murderers, the drug dealers, the mentally insane. Trump hailed the administration's effort in slashing regulations and the government workforce, as well as his use of tariffs to reduce the trade deficit. We cut a record number of regulations. I promised to eliminate 10 old regs for each new one. Instead, we cut 129 for each new one.
Wow.
We have so much wasted regulation, stupid regulation, regulations where they go by Florida, which is a disaster state.
California, where they go by California.
Which is a disaster state where the Governor Newsom is truly doing a bad job.
Newscom.
It's killing that state. If we ever ran the country, this country would quickly become Venezuela.
In other words, of Newsom. Yep.
He said that more than 270,000 bureaucrats have been removed from the federal payroll. Trump hailed the use of tariffs in slashing the trade deficit by 77%, and see the U.S. exports are up by more than $150 billion. The trade deficit is down, and that doesn't include last month where we had our best month. We slashed the trade deficit by an incredible 77% in 1 year with no inflation, something that affects every U.S. export. American exports are up by more than $150 million this year. People say, oh, we're not exporting, all we do is buy. If you keep buying, you're not going to have a country for very long.
Yeah.
So we increased exports by more than $150 billion. And then on the topic we talked about before.
Well, I just want to say one thing he said that you skipped over. We have virtually no crime in D.C. anymore. We could do the same thing with Chicago and whatever. I just wanted to... I skipped over it. That was important.
And Wisconsin and Minnesota,
that's way
the
down.
largest reduction in national violent crime on record. Why do you think violent crime is down?
Because
why do you think there are fewer murders?
Because of ICE agents.
Why do you
National Guard?
No, none of that. It's down because we got rid of 2 million criminals in the United States. And
that's ICE agents.
We flew them the hell out of the country. And the criminal population of America has been seriously reduced by ICE.
2 million?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, 1.6 million deported, and another million. I'm sorry, 600,000 deported, and 1.6 million left. So the point is that we're improving the country by improving the residents of the country. And the efforts of ICE are vital to the effort to reduce crime.
Okay, we got to take a break. And when we come back, we're going to do the Economist predicts even better ahead. Okay, when we get back.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Dick Morris and Doug DiPierro Show, one of our best shows, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group.
Hey, Dick.
I keep reading that Russia is gaining in the battlefield in Ukraine, but losing behind the front lines.
So here it is.
Explain that.
There's certainly a reason why more and more of the enemy soldiers the Ukrainians capture are not Russians, but come from places very often far away, Kenya, India, South Africa. The Kremlin is also running out of money. The Russian government has just announced that it will raise taxes. It has always been reported that Russia is unable to produce sufficient drones to sustain its losses on the battlefield. This may become a very important factor. Both sides are also conducting a deep strike drone attack to destroy the enemy's energy infrastructure. In short, everyone is struggling at the moment. However, on the Russian side, these serious problems have yet to manifest themselves in the battlefield losses. At that point in time, no one could say what will happen. The outcome of this war simply depends on too many factors, especially the willingness of Ukraine's allies to increase their support. That's amazing. We got to jump to this next story.
Please.
It's important. This is Omar, inbred Omar, ratchets up anti-U.S. rhetoric. I hate this woman. Tensions have been running high in Minnesota with thousands of federal agents deployed to the Twin Cities following a massive fraud investigation. ICE enforcement operations have become a flashpoint. Protesters have clashed with agents. Democratic officials have cried foul. Yeah, okay. And last Friday, House Democrats convened a field hearing in St. Paul with a title that tells you everything you need to know about their approach. Kidnapped and disappeared. Trump's deadly assault on Minnesota. Subtle, right? It was there in that charged atmosphere that Representative Inbred Omar took the microphone and delivered remarks that have since ricocheted across the nation. The Minnesota Democrat who represents much of Minneapolis didn't hold back, comparing current U.S. immigration enforcement to the condition she fled as a Somali refugee. Omar lets loose with a statement that left many Americans stunned. Hey, this is her. I don't want to curse. Yeah, and then she curses, right? I don't want to curse, but those of us who escape places like that, the one place where we thought we would never experience this is the U.S. God-D states. That's horrible. She said that. She should go right back to her crap hole that she's from. And we should all be ashamed that it is the United States that is allowing for this to take place. She said GD states, the U.S. GD state. Yes, a sitting member. She actually should be ashamed that we should be ashamed that she represents Congress. That's what we should be ashamed by. Yes, a sitting member of Congress, someone who arrived here as a refugee, was granted citizenship and climbed to the highest legislative body in the land, just stood at a podium and cursed the nation that made every bit of this possible. I don't know about you, but it's a different way. This is our fault. We need to figure out not to let these people in. The response was swift. Senator Mike Lee of Utah fired back on X. No member of Congress should ever refer to our country as the USGD state. What should be the consequence of saying, what should be the consequence? And Elon Musk said, he didn't mince words either, replying, whatever the penalty is for treason. That's basically what he's saying about it. Hard to argue with that logic, isn't it? This is horrible. First of all, I was never allowed to say the G. My mother would have, Italians, you can't say GD about anything. But for her to say that, this is disgusting. I saw, and I don't think it was AI, she was speaking, and she said something else. And is it called the guy in Congress that leads the Congress? He's not the Speaker of the House. Who's leading when they go back and forth and he can stop them? He's got the gavel.
The Speaker.
He is the Speaker, right? He shut her down. He says, "I'm sorry, shut her mic. She can't talk." I have to look into it how real it was, but she's a horrible person.
And the enormity of what's going on in Minnesota is incredible. Here they let 100,000 refugees in because we're compassionate and a loving country.
Yeah, Obama.
We feed them, we clothe them, we take care of them. They sign up for food stamps, a program that was SNAP benefits, a program that we have to feed the hungry. They rip it off, and they have phony centers collecting money for SNAP benefits and for child care.
Yeah, the Learning Center that spelt it wrong.
And then they stay in the country illegally, and when ICE tries to round them up and make them obey the law, they riot, they demonstrate, and try to kill ICE agents, and they vilify them.
Put it that way, Dick. It takes another.
They vilify the people who are sent here to protect us in this country. It literally is the politics of Somalia exported to the United States.
And they're stealing, what, $9 billion?
$100 billion.
No, it's not up to that yet.
$100 billion. The latest thing was that we've discovered suitcases with $100 billion of cash stolen by these folks.
Anyway, we have to take a break, and we're going to see you on the other side of the hour.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Dick Morris and Doug DiPierro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group.
Dick, I just want to mention to our friends up north about the snow. Be careful in the snow, and, don't hurt your back shoveling. We're in the same kind of boat. I'm going to go to the beach, and it's really hot. My feet are going to get hot in the sand. And it's like walking in the snow, walking in the sand. I'm sorry. That was horrible, wasn't it?
Last week, Trump sent shivers through the financial community in attacking Powell, the head of Federal Reserve Board. And the attack was largely Jerome Powell. And the attack was largely seen as pressure on Powell to lower interest rates. But the uprooting of waste, fraud, and abuse by Trump administration has now made its way to the Federal Reserve, and potential ethics violations by myriad board members, according to Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent.
The Fed is now losing $100 billion a year, $100 billion, with no accountability, Bessent said last week when asked about it, the investigation into the Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell. We had the worst inflation in 49 years, and we'll see what the tally ends up being, but a very good chance that we will have had ethic violations over the past 4 to 6 of the regional presidents or governors, and there needs to be some accountability. Notably, the Federal Reserve has enshrined independence, but unlike the actual democratically elected U.S. president beholden to checks and balances with the legislative and judicial branches of the government, Bessent suggested the unelected bureaucrats at the Fed have averted accountability, all with the power of just printing money and setting interest rates and monetary policy for Americans. The Federal Reserve occupies a unique spot in the American governmental process. Bessent lamented last Wednesday. They have no supervision. They have no accountability. And I think that we will look at this and think of a couple of things on Chair Powell's watch. Bessent went on Sunday shows to share more condemnation and warnings for Powell and the Fed run amok in America. Fed run amok in America. Of course, he's committed to the independence of the Federal Reserve, but independence does not mean no oversight. Bessent told he was referring to President Trump's pressing of Powell and lower interest rates. Host Kristen Welker was backed down by Bessent in her attempt to conflate the White House ballroom construction with a massively over-budget Federal Reserve building renovations. The renovations at the White House are not $700 million more than $1 billion or $1.5 billion over budget, Kristen. And the White House that is being paid for with private funds, Bessent shot back. If I want to buy a new chair for my office at the Treasury, that is an appropriation. Just to understand, the Federal Reserve has magic money. They print their own money, so when you have no oversight, why not have a little sunlight? Kristen, I have called since last summer for the Fed to do its own internal investigation, and that has not been heeded. And again, I don't know how about you. If I were to receive inquiries from the Justice Department, I would answer them. They went unanswered.
Now, we always have difficulty predicting what new outrages the left will think up. Who could have imagined a few years ago that they would oppose bail and they want to release somebody the second they're arrested, not even processing them? Who could have imagined that they would handcuff ICE agents and not permit them to enforce the law?
Well, I saw a great little cartoon. The guy is yelling at a girl with her cell phone, and he goes, "What are you offended by today?" And she looks at her phone and she says, "Oh, they didn't tell me yet." It's true, though.
Now, Virginia just elected a new governor, and Spanberger.
Spanberger.
Yeah, Spanberger.
Immediately.
And she has laid out an agenda that the Virginia legislature is going to be asked to pass. And it's coming to the rest of the country, and we should get a heads up from that. Let's start with law enforcement, or lack thereof, in the vapid left-wing dreamland. Spanberger immediately rescinded Youngkin's executive order requiring law enforcement to aid federal officials in deportations. On top of that, State House Dems introduced a litany of bills that would make illegal immigration markedly worse. They want to ban civil arrests for immigration offenses at courthouses. They want to guarantee free education to illegals. The Virginia Democrat Jessica Anderson, who filmed herself peeing in public.
She filmed herself peeing in public, really?
Posted it on TikTok.
Oh, God.
Introduced a bill which would use taxpayer funds to teach English to incarcerated criminal illegal immigrants.
God.
I'm just getting started, dear reader. Virginia Democrats have also targeted law enforcement officials themselves. A bill they're passing ends qualified immunity for police and federal officials, allowing for civil suits across the board. That means that if you get arrested by an ICE agent, you can claim brutality, you can claim excessive force, you can do all kinds of stuff like that, just as if your neighbor punched you.
And she said, and that was not all. She said, if you're wearing a mask as a cop, a criminal can claim his rights were violated and sue you after the fact. Didn't they want us to wear masks for like 2 years?
Yeah, right. On the other hand, criminals under Democratic rule in California will see quite a reversal in treatment. The bills would reclassify certain kinds of robbery as nonviolent, even if robberies include intimidation. The bill would create legal ambiguity about what constitutes violence, effectively ending Virginia's 3 strikes to life policy, which required enhanced sentences for repeat offenders. The bill also removes mandatory minimums for things like repeat violations of protective orders and certain assault enhancements. So your crazy ex-boyfriend can violate a restraining order, rob you and your new boyfriend while wielding a knife, and all he gets is a bad dog from the state.
Bad dog.
Their approach even applies to schools. If you want to expel an unruly and even violent student under this bill, you'd have to demonstrate that you first applied evidence-based restorative disciplinary practice. I wonder which Democrat-run NGO would be cashing in on restorative discipline, eh?
This is ridiculous.
This is basically the Virginia pro-crime party, and really held nothing back in its first week of the new legislative session.
It's almost like 20 years ago, if you talked about this, people on both sides, they would say, what are you, crazy? This is stupid. This is a bad movie. It's unbelievable. I think I'm going to do this one, Dick. What do you say?
Okay.
California's new billionaire taxes, really confiscation. In the heart of Silicon Valley, where innovation has long fueled California's economy, a storm is brewing. The proposed 2026 Billionaire Tax Act, a one-time 5% levy on net worth, exceeding $1 billion. And if their net worth is exceeding $1 billion, it has sparked an unprecedented exodus of wealth and talent. Once again, incentive, right? You take away the incentives, bye-bye.
This is right out of Malays' speech.
Yeah, right out of his speech. As tech moguls and investors flee to states like Florida, thank you very little, and Texas, the state risks losing billions in annual revenue while deepening its fiscal woes. But beyond the headlines, this tax isn't just a revenue grab. It's a destructive force that could seize assets, bankrupt entrepreneurs, and stifle the very innovation that built the whole country's prosperity. Let's unpack this while this measure is more akin to economic sabotage than sound policy.
The destructive nature and effective asset seizure tax. At first, the Billionaire Tax Act seems straightforward. A one-time excise tax on the ultra-wealthy to fund healthcare, education, and other good stuff. Sponsored by the Service Employees International Union, United Healthcare Workers, it targets about 200 billionaires in California with a combined net worth of $2 trillion, potentially raising $100 billion over 5 years. But dig deeper, and it reveals itself as an aggressive asset seizure mechanism. The tax is levied on worldwide net worth as of December 31st, 26, including unrealized gains on stocks, private businesses, art, and intellectual property, excluding directly held real estate. For illiquid assets like startup equities, taxpayers can defer payments via an optional deferral account, but interest accrues and the bill comes due on sale. So this forces rich people to prematurely sell assets to generate cash, triggering additional capital gains and devaluing holdings. It's seizure. Billionaires like Peter Thiel and David Sachs have labeled such a warning that sets a dangerous precedent for government outreach. So don't dismiss this as something that just is crazy in California. This is a new kind of taxation.
Well, taxing unrealized gains.
Yeah.
This is the most important part of this. A bankruptcy trap for entrepreneurs and investors. The tax focuses on unrealized gains, appreciation and asset value without a sale, poses an existential risk for entrepreneurs, emerging business owners, and invest. Basically, if you put money into something, you just put a lot of money. Let me finish reading. And then they want to tax it before you even make any money on it. That's the unrealized tax. Unrealized gains aren't cash. They are paper profits tied up in volatile or illiquid assets like startup shares. Taxing them creates liquidity crisis, forcing them to sell at fire sale prices or to borrow against assets, which compounds the debt. For entrepreneurs, this is devastating. Once again, incentive that they want to pull away. It's devastating. Imagine a founder whose startup value at $10 billion, but whose equity is illiquid. The tax could demand $500 million or more from exceeding their salary or cash reserves. To pay, they diluted their stake, lose control, or face bankruptcy. Non-dischargeable undertax debt rules. Studies show such taxes reduce incentives, there you go, for risky investments. And risky investment is how this whole country was formed. Every guy that really did it, it was a serious risk. Guys in Manhattan, Carnegie's, Rockefellers, they risked a lot of money. They didn't know they were going to get their money back. Anyway, studies show that tax reduce incentives for risky investment, chilling entrepreneurship and innovation. MBER research highlights how accrued basis taxation like this dilutes founder returns while providing little risk sharing in the event. Right, they're not sharing the risk.
Yeah.
Right. Investors fare no better. Angel funding and venture capital dry up as potential gains are taxed prematurely, distorting portfolios towards safer, lower growth assets. This could bankrupt emerging owners who bet big on high-risk ventures, as seen in the past .com bust, where exercise options led to massive tax bills on worthless stock. California's tech ecosystem, relying on such risk-taking, stands to suffer most.
The exodus, flight to Florida and Texas, and massive revenue losses. The tax is already driving a golden exit. At least 6 billionaires, including Peter Thiel to Florida, David Sachs to Texas, and Larry Page, restructuring assets to Florida, relocated before January 1st, 26, the residency cutoff.
What about the residency cutoff? Why?
You have to live there. If you live in California by January 1st, 26, you have to pay the tax.
At least for that year.
Yeah.
You could still leave, right? Right, okay, go on.
Advisors report another 15 to 20 may follow if the measure advances. This builds on broader trends. California led U.S. out-migration in 25 for the 60th year in a row, with Texas and Florida as the top destinations. Census figures show loss of 129,000 residents, driven by high costs and taxes. The revenue implications are staggering. Friedberg estimates 2 to 2.5 trillion in assets have fled.
Wow.
Risking $20 billion in annual state revenue and hundreds of thousands of jobs. So we see the left self-destructing. And Mamdani is the best example of that.
Well, this is a pretty good example.
California following this model.
It's unbelievable.
And
this sounds worse than New York.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, the idea of taxing unrealized capital gains is incredible. I bought a house. I'm living in the house. And I bought the house for $200,000.
Yeah, right.
But there are some people who say it could be worth $500,000.
So they're going to tax you now.
So they're going to tax me now for the other $300,000 that's unrealized that I may never see. And
this is unrealistic.
And as the value goes up, my tax goes up, even though I never see a dime of taxes.
Horrible.
The key thing about capital gains tax, which makes it borderline acceptable, is that it means that you only have to pay it when you sell the property, when you have the money.
Right.
This idea of unrealized capital gains was basically used in Britain by the Labour government after World War II, and all of the great British castles and states had to be sold into national trust protection because of unrealized capital gains taxes.
I think people have to look into land patents. That's what I'm looking into, the land patent. Hey, I heard when we come back, I heard Musk is giving you $10 million.
No,
Nick?
Wrong Morris.
What?
That's Nate Morris.
Oh, I
who's running for Senate from Kentucky. He got the $10 million.
Oh, not you?
No.
Damn it.
I might get some of that in the fee, but we haven't got that deal yet.
When we get back.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
You're on, Dick Morris.
Welcome to the Dick Morris and Doug DiPierro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group. Elon Musk is back, and he's jumped into the midterm elections with both feet and with a big pocketbook. He just wrote a $10 million check to a guy named Nate Morris,
Nate,
who is running for Senate in Kentucky.
Damn it.
It's the latest sign that he plans to make waves in the midterm elections. Musk was impressed by Morris's business background. Morris funded Rubicon, the largest waste and recycling companies in the country, starting with only a $10,000 line of credit in 2008. So Musk is back, which is important. Now, you've heard a lot about the assault on the dollar and apocalyptic predictions about what will happen if the dollar is replaced. At Davos, the international forum, it will be 1 year to the day since Trump was inaugurated. Since then, he's torn up the global order, slapping tariffs on trading partners, and apprehending the president of Venezuela. Will this new diplomatic and economic paradigm change global finance too, by undermining the role of the dollar? The currency share of global reserves has fallen from a peak of 85% in 1970 to 58% today. After the Liberation Day tariffs last year, investors rushed to hedge the dollar exposure, and the greenback fell by 10% in 25. Yet the currency's lead over its formidable rivals remained formidable. Just as the primary appeal of Davos is that other people go, reserve currencies benefit from network effects. The more people use them, the greater the incentive to be in the system yourself. The dollar has a dominant share of trade invoicing, foreign currency transactions, and global debt. And the Trump administration believes that the rise of stablecoins will enable it to preside over a strengthening, not a weakening, of the greenback's primacy. So don't listen to the fears. Look at how stablecoin is going to take a lot of our debt assets and put it into a cyberspace where it can't be taxed and where it can't be diluted. Now in Minnesota, all hell is breaking loose, and that comes at a time when Waltz and the mayor of Minneapolis, Fry, have been summoned by the Justice Department.
So first of all, it's Tampon Tim and Jacob in the frying pan. I always have to have a name for someone. The Department of Justice on Tuesday issued subpoenas to Minnesota Governor Tampon Tim and Minneapolis Mayor Jacob in the frying pan for obstructing immigration enforcement investigation. Waltz and Fry have been at the center of city and state opposition in Minneapolis to actions by the Trump administration to deport immigrants. It has set off demonstrations and protests across the city that have gone up in temperature since the immigration and customs enforcement officers shot and killed a woman in the city. Now, let me ask you this. Once again, if the money people, and we don't know exactly who they are, so I have to be careful, right? Could be Soros, it could be these other people, right? They loved seeing this happen. But also, they're getting to Waltz and the mayor, to the governor and the mayor. Like, are they getting to these guys? Like, literally, are they, sending a note? Or
I think it's more than getting to. I think that the Waltz and Fry are trying to cash in on the information they're being given, and it's more than just getting to. Now, California owes the federal government $1 billion for Medicaid abuse.
Wow.
Trump ordered them to return $1 billion after a sweeping audit found the state improperly used Medicaid funds to pay for non-emergency health services for illegal immigrants, according to officials and audit findings made public. The audit, conducted under directions of Mehmet Oz, the administrator of Centers for Medicare and Medicaid, examined Medicaid billings across several states in Washington, D.C. This determined that more than $1.3 billion in federal health care funds were improperly claimed for services for illegal immigrants. The Supreme Court has everybody on hold right now while it's assessing the viability and the legality of Trump's tariffs. And rarely has there been a case that could completely derail the whole economy. It reminds me of the anti-New Deal stuff that went on in the 30s, where they took Roosevelt's program and ruled it unconstitutional and plunged the country back into the Depression. Now Trump says he would enact new tariffs immediately if the courts struck down his tariffs. Trump launched under emergency law. The Supreme Court could rule in the coming weeks, possibly as early as Tuesday. And the administration, Greer, the Trade Secretary, said would start the next day to replace tariffs with other levies. Well, that's good. We talked about Greenland with General Flynn. Now, more on Minnesota 19. ICE says Minnesota is harboring 1,300 illegals in state jail and won't let ICE in.
ICE accused Minnesota on Tuesday of harboring illegal immigrants with criminal histories after local and state authorities ignored the federal agency's request to hand them over. 1,360 people in its jails. 1,360. Wow. ICE Acting Executive Associate Director for Enforcement and Removal Operations, Marcos Charles, said the federal government has repeatedly attempted to work with the state to apprehend illegal immigrants in safe settings. See, that's important. In safe settings, as opposed to on the street. And then what happens, right? So in safe settings, if they would do this, a lot of the street rioting stuff would not happen. You know, it seems like they want violence. It keeps their narrative alive. You know, that's what I get out of this. ICE currently has more than 1,360 immigration detainers on illegal aliens in Minnesota jails and prisons. And we're calling on Governor Tim Walz and Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey to turn these criminal illegal aliens directly over to ICE to keep Minnesota residents in our community safe and people on the street with the riots, Charles said during a press conference in Minneapolis on Tuesday. Of that number, 500 illegal immigrants have previously been ordered deported by a federal immigration judge, meaning a judge has found that they had no legal standard to remain in the country and are not valid asylum seekers in the cases where the illegal immigrants sought refugee. Since ICE, as well as Border Patrol and other federal law enforcement agencies, dispatched thousands of personnel into Minneapolis earlier this month, they have arrested 3,000 people, including 113 over the past weekend. In Trump's first year in office, more than 10,000 illegal immigrants in Minnesota have been taken into federal custody.
Homan, the director of ICE, said the mayor and the governor of Minnesota could fix this real quick. Let us into the jail. Stop being a sanctuary jurisdiction, sanctuary state, sanctuary city. Give us access to your jail so we can arrest these criminals in the safety and security of the jail. That way we don't have to go into the neighborhood and find them.
I mean, there's common sense. That's why they want this to happen. Somebody, I don't know.
This is General Flynn's theory, right. And this proves it.
Yeah.
They have them in custody.
Right.
And as opposed to taking custody of them inside a jail,
let them out.
They do it out in the middle of the street.
Well, let them out and do whatever you could do, more criminal, more crime, whatever, and then there's a riot.
This is a fabricated crisis by the left to try to derail Trump's immigration agenda. They know that his agenda is popular. They know that the deportations are reducing the crime rate. And they're determined to stop them. And the only way they can do it is force them to do it out of doors. And even though they have the illegal immigrants in prison, they won't let the agents in to deal with them, so that they can make them on the street.
You have to look at this. truly, really as evil. I mean, we have to be friggin' evil to want people to go out, cause violence, get killed maybe, most likely. You know, you're going after... This is an evil thing. This is whatever you want to call it. The negative energy of the universe, the devil, whatever you want to call it. This is some evil crap that's going on.
Now, in the next item, let's talk about the good guys striking back. Wells Fargo is moving its wealth management business to Florida.
So listen to this. Wells Fargo relocating the headquarters of its wealth management business to West Palm Beach, where General Flynn is right now, becoming the first major U.S. bank to base its wealth operations in Florida, the company confirmed Monday. The San Francisco-based bank, well, of course they're going to leave California, right, what we just talked about. The San Francisco-based bank signed a lease for 50,000 square feet at the One Flagger office building, according to Wealth Chief Barry Somers. About 100 employees, mostly senior executive, including nearly half of the unit's operation committee, will relocate to the new office by year-end, Bloomberg reported. The office is scheduled to open in August. Wells Fargo's wealth unit generated $16 billion in revenue last year, accounting for roughly 20% of the bank's total revenue.
So if we had music on the show, like we used to, we'd have Billy Joel Moving Out.
Yeah, too late.
Now, 100,000 people have gotten bonuses to leave the country.
Oh, this is so beautiful. I was against this until you really convinced me that this was a good move.
Homeland Security's paid out roughly 100,000 bonuses to illegal immigrants who've registered to self-deport through the government's special app. Most of those were $1,000 payments, though the department experienced a surge when it offered a bonus $3,000 holiday payment last month. So this is the alternative Trump is giving them, as opposed to getting killed on the street.
Or we're costing us a lot more money to house them.
They're letting them out.
I wrote a note here, too, when doing my research. Here's what we got to look for. We got to watch out for the back and forth scammers, the in and out. Guys that come into the country and then they collect $1,000 to get a plane home and then come in and do it again. So they got to know seriously. Spoken like a real New Yorker,
yep.
Right? But it's true.
Yep.
You know, you're going to hack home the in and out or the back and forth guys.
Now, you remember that...
Reminds me of Cheech and Chong when immigration's come in and they go, oh, we're guessing. The guy goes, don't worry about it. We got a wedding in Mexico. We call up immigration. They come pick us up and get a free ride to Mexico, and then we walk over the border to get back.
That's Cheech and Chong.
That was Cheech and Chong movie.
There is a God, and retaliation lives. Trump is now backing a challenger to Senator Cassidy, who challenged him and approved Senator Bill Cassidy of Louisiana.
He voted to impeach
Trump.
Yeah.
And now Trump is backing a challenger to him and will root for her extensively.
Julia Letlow.
The head of NATO says Trump is right about the threat to the Arctic. When it comes to the Arctic, this was what Flynn was talking about.
Right.
President Trump is right, the head of NATO said. Other leaders in NATO are right. We need to defend the Arctic. We know that the sea lanes are now open, and that Russia and China were becoming increasingly active in the Arctic Circle, and that acknowledging this was a major threat. Now, China is changing its tactics on immigration at exactly the time that we are cracking down on immigration. China is invading the United States through birthright citizenship.
The findings could have major implications for President Trump's January 2025 executive order, which sought to curtail birthright citizenship for people born in the country of their parents. For people born in the country if their parents are in the country either illegally or temporarily. The administration argues that this class of individuals are outside the jurisdictions of the United States, which is a component of birthright citizenship under the 14th Amendment. The order faced immediate challenges from several quarters, and the Trump administration has asked the court to review two of the key cases. It is the first of the pair that the High Court agreed to consider this term. In Barber versus Trump, Joseph N. LaPlante, a federal district court judge in New Hampshire, issued a preliminary injunction stopping the administration from enforcing the order against babies born on or after February 20 of 25, SCOTUS blog reported. So far, the justices have not acted on the administration's petition in the companion case, Trump versus Washington, in which the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit ruled the executive order is invalid for contradicting the plain language of the 14th Amendment, the Atlas also reported. The 14th Amendment was added to the Constitution in 1868 following the American Civil War. One section of that amendment, known as the Citizenship Clause, says that all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction of therefore are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside.
So what China is doing is taking children born in the United States, primarily to the Chinese elite. Then they go back to China where they're raised.
They grow up, they get their schooling.
They go to Chinese schools, they're part of the communist establishment.
And then when they're
turn
old enough,
18 and now can vote, they can now get government jobs.
Right. That's amazing.
Peter Schweiker, who has been the leader in overcoming, in exposing corruption, said this is a massive national security issue that I think has to be understood by the Supreme Court.
So we're going to take a break, Dick. When we come back, we'll talk about the court removes handcuffs on ICE in Minnesota.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Dick Morris and Doug DiPierro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group. We began the show with an interview with General Michael Flynn, who spoke about the funding of the anti-ICE demonstrations. And now we have additional information about that. Left-wing activists led by megadonors like Lorraine Powell Jobs and George Soros are calling for a domestic front of resistance, saying it's wartime against the U.S. empire.
Organizers at the National Black Radical Organizing Conference laid out their vision for revolution at its biennial event last week, 2-year event. Camus Franklin, the founder of Community Movement Builders, said that part of our work is to open up domestic front of resistance because of the empire is busy battling here. It can't do as much over there. Check this out. We think ourselves as a part of worldwide revolution, said Franklin, according to this video published by Manhattan Institute. Lorik Ingram, isn't that funny? Lorik Ingram.
What difference a K makes.
Yeah. Lorik Ingram, there's not Laura, Lorik Ingram, an organizer with Black Men Build, called on the movement to treat the political landscape as a state of war. This is scary, but not really. We're dealing with an empire. We're dealing with wartime, Ingram said. To understand it's wartime, so our movement should reflect that as well. While the organizers spouted radical rhetoric and called for socialist revolution, both Community Movement Builders and Black Men Build, that's Black Men Build organization, are founded by prominent mainstream Democratic and center-left organizations. Powell Jobs, the widow of Steve Jobs, and owner of Atlantic, has given $1.5 million through 2024 to community movement builders, the Washington Free Beacon reported. Google co-founder Eric Schmidt donated $783,000 to Franklin's group through 24, and California gubernatorial candidate Tom Steiner's charity, Tomcat Foundation, has contributed $30,000 to New York, Georgia project. The voters register. Basically, they're giving money, all of these people, to these movements that are now the movement, the Black Men Build, which offers self-defense and firearms training for its members, is also funded by a number of prominent philanthropists. The NBA Foundation, a charity founded by the Professional Basketball League that aims to drive economic opportunity in the black community, donated $600,000 to Black Men Build in 23. George Soros' Open Society Foundations gave $1 million to support Black Men Build in 23. And $100,000 in 22, according to the tax file. Community Movement Builders and Black Men Build are two members of the National Black Radical Organization Conference, held every 2 years to help organize Train for the Fight to advance the movement for black liberation. So here's what I'm going to say. Bring it on, brother. I got a lot of friends, black friends, that would no way back this up in any way. And this
fleshes out the interview we had with General Flynn at the start of the show, and gives you insight into how that money is coming to fund these ICE demonstrations.
The problem is the good old boys are not going to allow this. Eventually, we will win. You know what I mean? These guys, there's only so many of them, and the good old boys are in the whole heart of the country. This, I guess do it. It just has to happen, I guess.
What we're watching here is that as Trump wins elections, as his poll numbers advance, as his economy does well, as he goes from win to win, they are resorting to extra-legal means and revolution and violence to win their case, they meaning the Democrats. And the way they do that is to foment violence in places like Minneapolis and to train activists in violence. It goes back to what I saw during the 60s happening now in this country.
Let's go to the phone, and Sandra's on, I think. Is she on, Sandra? From New Jersey?
I'm on.
Hi, Sandra. We're having a problem getting the call screen, so everyone else, please bear with us.
Yeah. So listen, I have two important things on my mind. One, regarding the ICE agents that I love, and I thank them every day for trying to help us. They better wear gloves because the protesters are becoming hungry. They actually bit off the finger of an ICE agent.
No way.
And you know what? Oh, yeah. And you want to know something, Doug? If they didn't have those masks on their face, they would probably eat their nose next because they're hungry. They're not eating their lunch. They're not having their dinner. They're going there very hungry. But really, I called today because I'm very impressed with Florida. As usual, they always do the right things. They just named a beautiful roadway called President Donald J. Trump Boulevard. It runs from Palm Beach International Airport straight to Mar-a-Lago. That's an honor that he deserves. Me too.
We'll take it next week.
I'm going to go up there now. Thank you so much, Sandra.
You're so welcome.
We'll think of you when we drive.
And then we have another caller. What's his name again, Matt? Richard. Let's take Richard. Hello, Richard.
Hello. Yes. Hi, Doug. Dick, how you doing?
Great.
Good. Great.
What's up?
I got a question I wanted to ask you. You used to talk about that Supreme Court case where they wouldn't have any more minority districts in the South, and it would be a big help for the Republicans in the upcoming midterms. I was wondering what was going on with that.
That's now pending in the court. They've completed the oral arguments. It looks like the ruling's going to go in our favor. And we're waiting with bated breath for that to happen. It could happen any day now.
Oh, that's great.
And be the huge changes that I predicted. Let's go to Joseph. Hi, Joseph.
Hey, Joseph. Hey, Joe.
Hello. Oh, Dick and Doug?
Yes. How are you?
Yes. Yeah, I'd like to point out a couple things. First off, the initialism BLM should stand for proper credit, should be like Marx. Now, in terms of Minnesota and Maine, 2 points. In Minnesota, we know that Waltz was in China 31 times. He's a Beijing candidate. He's working for them. He's covering up for all the corruption.
That's a great point. I had forgotten about that. Right. But boy, that is a great point.
All the corruption, the $10 billion or more that President Trump's talking about, that was taken in a default by the Somalis. Now, so that has to be looked at, of course. That's why that's happening. Why is this happening in Minnesota? ICE agents are involved in most states. Why Minnesota? Because of Tim Waltz and Frey. So look at that. Now, the other thing about Maine, this came out, I read this about 2 years ago. In Maine, talking about the CCP, they discovered over 250 illegal growers of marijuana that were run by Chinese in Maine. So they're shipping that illegal marijuana all over, plus down the corridor, the 95 corridor. I think I mentioned this before. So that's another state that they're involved in. So the CCP is involved in this war against the United States, and we know that. But that has to be constantly brought up. Right. Because it's the communists, not the Chinese people. The Chinese people are good people. It's the communists, the 92 million that control all of that. And they've infiltrated this country. All the fires that were being produced in the last 5 years in the farms and the growers, all of those could be, I think they could be traced back to them. They also bought Smithfield Farms, the largest pork producers, and then they bought Nathan's. Last week, they bought Nathan's hot dogs for $450 million.
Wow. They did?
That's a bargain.
Oh, my God. Who bought it? Smithfield Hams? Who bought Nathan's?
The same company that owns Smithfield Farms.
Oh, my God.
Chinese company.
Now you're getting
they're
serious.
in Hong Kong.
Now we're mad, Joe.
Now you're getting serious.
Absolutely. I've been a Bronx boy for 40 years.
Thank you so much. You gave us some good stuff. We have to take a break. Thank you, Joe. Appreciate it.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome to the Dick Morris and Doug DiPierro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group.
You know, not for nothing over here. We're die-hard New York. Well, I am, even though Dick was born in Manhattan, but, you know, he's a rich kid from Manhattan. We're going out to Nathan's right now to get a hot dog before the Chinese take it over and do something. We're die-hard hot dog guys. Oh, my God. Now, all right, let's get on to this thing.
The House has passed a bill, that gives the government the authority and the capability of turning off your car anytime it wants to.
First of all, there's no way they're going to be able to do this, first of all. And it's not going to happen. But 57 Republicans voted the vast majority of Democrats. 57 Republicans voted with the vast majority of Democrats on Thursday to keep a Biden-era mandate enabled government remote control of vehicles, drawing backlash from conservatives like Ron DeSantis. The group voted to defeat an amendment proposed by Thomas Massey of Kentucky that would have rolled back government requirements for the development of a kill switch to disable the cars of impaired drivers. That amendment failed by a vote of 164 to 268. DeSantis, who has championed small government policies in the Sunshine State, blasted the amendment vote Friday morning. The idea that the federal government would require auto manufacturers to equip cars with a kill switch that can be controlled by the government. First of all, who's controlling and who's the guy sitting there watching you drive and says he's not driving right, I want to switch you up? That's number one. DeSantis, frustrated, echoed that other lawmakers who were left concerned. Unbelievable, disturbing. Keith Self of Texas said in his own post, just joined almost all the Democrats to ensure the government can shut off your car. That's ridiculous. Massey included his amendment to counter language under current law that requires the development of the kill switch. A provision included in the Biden-era infrastructure directed the National Highway Traffic to do this. It would passively monitor the performance of a driver. Who's monitoring the performance of the driver of a motor vehicle, and prevent or limit motor vehicle operation of impairment is detected, according to the law. Although Biden's Infrastructure Act required development of that rule in November of 24, has not yet issued such requirement. The NHTSA is continuing to review technology for the ability. So here's the other thing. You're going to kill a guy's car when he's doing 80 miles an hour on 95? Oh, the guy's swaying, you're going to shut it off? What you going to do? Run into something and he's going to stop and the truck's going to run him over? So this is not going to happen. The NHTSA said difficulties remain in parsing out drunk drivers from drowsy or distracted behavior. The idea makes some good sense, but this can't be done. It's not going to happen. The looming Orwellian automobile kill switch deadline threatens civil liberties. When your car shuts down because it doesn't approve of your driving, I want to know who's doing that. How will you appeal your roadside conviction? Massey asked in the Post. First of all, there's no way this is going to happen. Just like I said, the electric car was going to go away. This will never ever. First of all, that's what they're going to argue. Who's the guy? Who's looking at this? Who's making this decision?
And Massey's point, how do you appeal it when you're doing 80 on a highway?
Yeah,
absolutely.
So it's not happening.
But it is really important to flag it and to pay attention to it.
So maybe what they do, okay, I got an idea. How about if they're going to have a GPS thing on your car, you see the guy swerving or is not driving right, you get the authorities and say, the state troopers.
Yeah. In
that area, within 5 miles, you have state troopers. Okay, there's a guy in Yonkers going up 95, a little erratic and a license plate, because they'll have that too.
Now, a congressman from California, one of my favorites, Eric Stolberg.
Oh, I hate that.
Is running for governor in November. Proposed that the ICE agents be blacklisted from any of the government roles in the country. In other words, it would make it illegal to employ former ICE agents. A threat that would also apply to local police departments. You have to go on offense against these guys, or we're just always reacting. I want to get their attention and change their behavior. His proposal extends beyond that, seeking to prohibit ICE agents from getting other law enforcement within their states to create sanctuary cities. It actually would blacklist ICE employees
that they
from
can't
getting other jobs with the government.
Right, in the government. Could you imagine?
You recall how we periodically covered TikTok.
Right.
Well, it's now happened that TikTok is moving to spin off its U.S. operations into a separate entity controlled by American investors, primarily backed by Trump. This is very important because TikTok is so popular among young people. It's a big way the Chinese have of influencing our politics and influencing our thinking. And Congress passed a law saying that the TikTok had to divest itself of its communist ownership, and otherwise it couldn't operate in the U.S.
Right.
And Trump has been negotiating that, and now he's cut a deal to do that. Well, what a show.
What a show.
Oh, my God.
This Sorwell guy, I can't believe we got 30 seconds. This Sorwell guy in California what he wants to do. You know what I mean? It's disgusting.
Well, he's the one who was dating a Chinese spy.
That's why, right? Yeah. Listen, Dick Morris, it's been an honor to be here on this radio with you. And say hello to Roxana on the rocks. We couldn't have her. You know, we had a lot of things going on. So
hey, Doug, let's go get a Nathan's hot dog.
And we're going to go get a Nathan's hot dog.
While they last.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Love it. And honored to have General Flynn also.
Thanks for listening to The Dick Morris Show. You can hear The Dick Morris Show Sundays at noon. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?
Busted. The reviews are in.
Awesome.
You wanted more Joe Concha. And we heard you. More Joe. More show.
We're talking to you. Under promise and over deliver.
Joe Concha. Weeknights at 9. Plus Sunday mornings at 11 on 77 WABC.
Jimmy Kimmel no longer tries to be funny. Not that he ever really was.
Joe Concha. Weeknights at 9. Plus Sunday mornings at 11.
Democrats defending cocaine coming into the country.